welcome back to more Keep Smiling Adventures. Today we are breaking down my latest bikepacking route that I took on, the Wolf Way, the Winter Wolf Way. While it's fresh in my mind, I'll try to give you everything you need to know. You can decide if this is a route you might want to take on for yourself. I will cover which bike to use, wild camping options, public transport, difficulty from 1 to 10, 1 being easy and 10 being hard, and my overall rating of the route. Again, 1, which means do not bother, to 10, which means it's the best thing since sliced bread. Let's get into it. The Wolf Way is a roughly 270-mile bikepacking route around the undulating countryside of Suffolk, starting in Bury St Edmunds. There are a couple of different versions of this route though. The one I took on this winter is a slightly longer option. The summer version uses the Felixstowe ferry. This is a passenger ferry that doesn't run in the winter, so make sure to check ferry times before taking on this route, as the winter version is a little longer because you need to head back inland to avoid the ferry. The summer version is around 250 miles. The route itself is made up of bridleways, byways, quite a lot of country lanes and some single track bridleways. If you enjoy a bit of history on your bikepacking routes, this one has plenty. From some of the earliest Neolithic settlements in Europe to the Roman cities of Ipswich and Dunwich. The route is pretty flat in the grand scheme of things, with the highest point being just under 400 feet above sea level. It's not pancake flat, but the hills are short and not particularly steep, making it a good option if you are looking for a slightly easier ride. The Wolf Way, being a loop around Suffolk, makes it quite an accessible route, with plenty of places to join along the way. It's very much a countryside bikepacking route, but not overly remote. If you are someone who is just starting out on your bikepacking journey, routes like the Wolf Way and the route that inspired it, the Rebellion Way, just north of here in Norfolk, are great places to begin. The Wolf Way is actually a little more fun as a route, and I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that it just has a bit more elevation than the Rebellion Way, and also seems to find more interesting trails. From bridleways through the Tunstall Forest to riding around Trimley Marshes, there's plenty to enjoy along the way. While it does offer some fun trails here and there, the route also uses a lot of country lanes, so getting through the miles never feels like too much of a struggle. That means you can take your time or blast through the miles if you so wish. If you enjoy a bit of history on your bikepacking routes, this one will also be right up your street. From UFOs to castles, there's a lot of history to be discovered, but I'll let you go and discover it. If you're looking to test your kit, learn some history, and have around 4 to 7 days available, I think this is a route for you. Nothing is overly technical. In the winter there are a few muddy sections which could quite easily result in a muddy bum if you are not careful. And in the drier months there are a few sandy trails that could be problematic. But overall it's generally quite easy going. The Wolf Way being a mixed terrain route means that making the right choice of bike will help you have the most enjoyable time out there. That being said, it's not an overly technical route. In the summer months when the trails are dry, most bikes will get through just fine, from a hybrid bike all the way to full suspension mountain bikes. As long as you have a bit of grip on the tyres, you'll be able to use the bike you already have. In the drier months, I'd recommend any bike that can fit around 35mm tyres. However, in the wetter winter months, I'd suggest something a little wider. My Sonda Camino is running 50mm tyres, and that handled everything well without being too slow on the country lanes, which there are plenty of. A mountain bike would be absolutely fine, but probably a bit overkill for a route like this. That said, if that's all you've got, don't let it put you off. When it comes to gearing, you really don't need anything special or any of the big modern gearing setups, as the route isn't very steep and there isn't much climbing. The steepest climb I remember was probably heading back up from the coastline near Lowestoft. Another great reason to take on this route is that wild camping was surprisingly easy. I was able to camp in woodlands all around the route. There are sections you need to get through in order to reach these spots, so a bit of planning is needed to make sure you end each day in the right place. That said, if you aim for the greener areas on the map, you should always be able to find somewhere suitable. The route runs through a fairly built up part of the country, so a bit of stealth camping is needed from time to time. Make sure you're setting up late, leaving early, and leaving no trace. As I was able to camp the entire route in woodlands, it would be possible to use a hammock on this trip, but it may limit you slightly and mean riding longer miles each day to reach the wooded areas. For that reason, I'd recommend a small one-person tent or a bivvy for the route. If you didn't want to camp, it would also be fairly easy to find hotels and B&Bs along the way, or even official camp spots, especially in the summer. As every 20 miles or so you'll either pass through a town or come very close to one. Suffolk is not a remote place, and the Wolf Way passes through lots of small towns and villages, some of which have little local shops where you can buy food and water along the way. The smaller villages tend to have a pub of some kind if you fancy a pub lunch, or just somewhere to fill up your water bottles. Suffolk does lack streams and rivers, so if you are hoping to filter water along this route, you may be disappointed. There are very few places where this is feasible, meaning you'll need to resupply at shops or pubs for resupply of them fluids. The main resupply points along the route are Bury St Edmunds at the start, then Sudbury, Hadley, Ipswich, Felixstowe, Woodbridge and Lowestoft, and there are a few little other places along the route. As long as you can carry enough for a few hours of riding at a time, I wouldn't worry too much about it. Finding places to resupply is pretty straightforward on the Wolf Way. The good thing about loop routes is that you can start in multiple different places and choose whichever works best for you. If you're using public transport to reach this route, the official start location, Bury St Edmunds, has good train links from Cambridge. The trains on this line didn't require bike reservation and have dedicated bike storage at the front, with space for up to 6 bikes in total. Other starting points include Ipswich, Sudbury, Felixstowe and Lowestoft, but I think Bury St Edmunds is a great place to start. It's also a good excuse to go and see the smallest pub in the UK. At 270 miles for the winter version and around 250 miles for the summer version, it's not the shortest beginner route out there, but it's not a hard route either, with most of it being straightforward to ride. In the wetter winter months, the route does become slightly more technical, with some of the bridleways getting muddy and a little slippery. Overall, I think riders with less experience should be absolutely fine though, especially in the dry summer months. This is definitely a beginner friendly route, and I'd rate it a 4 out of 10. The distance might feel like a lot for some people, but ultimately it's a route you can spread out over a longer period of time, which makes it much more manageable. Overall, it's a pretty easy route. The Wolf Way, or the Winter Wolf Way in this case, was a fun route to ride and one I really enjoyed getting out to do. For me personally, it's a great ride for the winter months. My overall rating for the Wolf Way is a 7 out of 10. It's a solid route, especially for beginners who want to try bikepacking without the stress of throwing themselves into something too remote or too technical. While it would be nice if the route had a little more off-road riding, that's more down to the rights of way legalities in England at the moment. As it stands, this route offers a bit of everything from history and nature to seaside towns and old castles. Suffolk is a fun place to explore without needing too much experience. To find more routes like this and a little more information on the gear I use and more cool stuff, head over to keepsmilingadventures.com and I will catch you out on the trails. Keep smiling. Enjoy the adventure.